20 years ago, there was only one tourist camp on the coast of Lake Alakol, and now there are dozens of them. In fact, this place looks like it was specifically designed for tourism. Several kilometers away, we can see the snowy peaks of the Jungarian Alakol mountain range. And at the mountain foot, there is a crystal clear and warm lake. Such a great geographical location no doubt contributes to the development of local tourism. You can get here from Kazakhstan's southern capital either by car or even better by train. Getting on the road in the evening and already sunbathing on the beach next day sounds great. Here there are not only guest houses but also balneal resorts. The slightly saline lake water is curative and helps in treating joint and skin diseases, as well as allows restoring the vitamin balance. During the Soviet time, Lake Alakol was the place where astronauts underwent rehabilitation. The legend says that even Genghis Khan himself used to fix his health here quite often. While the residents of southern Kazakhstan escape from the summer heat here, the northerners come to get some sun. The lake has a unique microclimate. In the afternoon, the cool breeze blows down from the glaciers, and at night, the damp wind blows up the mountains from the lake. Occasionally, the refreshing wind turns into a real trouble, coming through a narrow tectonic break between the Alatau and Bar Lake ridges. From the Abinur Desert, the destructive wind Yevgey enters the Alakol Hollow, bringing hurricanes and storms. They take down house roofs and even drown fishing boats. The 10-kilometer pass between the two mountain systems is also known as the Jungarian Gate, because it's not only natural disasters, but also foreign armies that used to go through it trying to conquer the land of Kazakhstan. The land here is saturated with our heroes' blood and keeps multiple evidences of the long past tragedies. It is a historical fact that during his Central Asian campaign, Genghis Khan's army passed through this territory and the commander had his military camp on the shore of Lake Alakol. 10 kilometers away from the lake coast, there begin the picturesque gorges of the Jatisu Alatau. The great geographical location allows combining beach holidays and adventure tourism. The tour operators working in the Jatisu Alatau organize horseback trips, hunting and wild animal watching tours, both for the Kazakhstanis as well as our foreign guests. Anything can become a tourist destination if it expands our knowledge of the world, even a simple apple garden. Guys, we are truly in the Garden of Eden, and I can prove it. Modern science has concluded that all existing apple species originate from a wild apple known as the Siever's apple. The one who did it was a sincere enthusiast. Apple breeders grafted over 25 different apple species upon the undemanding wild apple trees. And tourists don't mind going off the main route and driving 5 extra kilometers to see this miracle. Close to the garden, there is a historical site, Joly Batir Monument. Travelers are not flying from the other end of the planet simply to have a walk in the open air. They want an exclusive tourist product. People agree to spend money only on something they cannot find either closer or cheaper. There are two main types of ecotourism, special and mass. For instance, if a tourist group goes to the Charin Canyon or the Singing Dune for a couple of hours, it's mass tourism. But if a tourist comes to Kazakhstan specifically to see some kind of animals or visit a site, it's special tourism. Mass tourists want to get a general impression of the country they came to, that is, learn about its nature, flora and fauna, history and culture, and the way of life in one journey. Thus, the more diverse a tourist route is, the more attractive it is for potential clients. Special tourism, on the contrary, follows different rules. Talking to tourists and tour operators from different countries, we often heard the same idea, that it is the degree of trust that represents the main limiting factor as to engaging tourists in such special educational tours. Tourists want to see exactly what the tour operators promised them. The development of tourism around Lake Alakol is propelling the district's economy and generates new jobs. Yet it should be kept in mind that mass tourism inevitably affects the ecosystems. For this reason, in 1998, they set up a reserve covering a part of the water and coastal area. The reserve has 6 plots. The Tugay Woods in the delta of the Tentek River and on the coast of Lake Sasykol are home to a rich and diverse semi-aquatic world. Here you can encounter boars, roe deer and pheasants. Wetlands serve excellent breeding sites for the waterfowl. The salty lake Zhalana-Shkol close to the Jungarian Gate is a great stopover point for migrating birds. In the late 60s of the last century, a well-known Kazakh ornithologist, Yernar Auezov, found the breeding colony, one of the only 3 registered around the world, of the relict gull on the island of Aral-Tobe. The next section includes 3 islands. The mid-island, Ota Aral-Tobe, is the most important. This is where the relict seagulls nest. I see some tourist routes marked inside the protected zone. Indeed, in the Tentek River Delta, within the protected area, we have the so-called monitoring sites, which can also be used for tourism. Is it possible to enter the main reservation zone? No, it's strictly forbidden. The tasks of the reserve include not only the protection of territories, but also environmental education. The fishing village of Koktuma has long turned into a tourist center. Every year, bird-watching lovers gather at the wings of Alakol Festival, hosted by the Pelican Guest House. Today we want to talk about the prospects of promoting tourism in Alakol district with Kuat Kumakayev, director of the Family Recreation Center, and Natalia Borovaya, editor-in-chief of a tourist magazine. Guys, what is your take on the opportunities of advancing ecotourism in this area? Lake Alakol area is sparsely populated. This is the main reason for its charm. The area is astonishing with its purity. When people come here for a beach holiday, it would be great if they could see something unusual in the neighborhood. For our business to survive and prosper, and this is true for all the hotels in the area, we need some kind of space close to the beaches where people could come all the year round. A space for making trips, learning something new. Investigating the area, if I may say so. The beach season on the lake lasts for only 3 months, but tourist camps need to keep staff and maintain their infrastructure all year round. It forces the local business to use their imagination, develop additional venture routes, various festivals and children entertainment, as the majority of these coming to Alakol come together with their children.
Дети на самом деле, они впитывают.
Kids absorb what they see, and this is exactly what we want. Years fly by unnoticed, and the ones who are now 5, 6 or even 10 years of age will become tour guides. We can watch the birds in the water from aboard the ferry together with our children. They love it. It's part of our life. We are making handmade souvenirs in the shape of birds and flying kites. We hope that in the future they will grow up happy people and maybe even become our guides. Not only the souls of children but also the adults tender with seeing something bright, unusual and fabulous. They leave the harsh reality back in the city and long for miracles. Wow! Look at that! Let's try it on. Do these amulets mean anything? Or are they just beautiful things? You see, every amulet finds its owner by itself. It's like the stone signs. Each person visually or by touch somehow gravitates towards particular things. I need an amulet which will give me more strength. I've been feeling rather weak lately. I would recommend this one for you then. It's a boar's fang as far as I can tell. Right you are. It was a 300-kilogram wild male boar. Not a shadow of doubt. Unbridled and wild. Sergei Cherkashin is hand-making souvenirs as well as organizes environmental and mystical tours. It may seem strange, but in fact these two types of tourism mix together quite well. The seekers of novel sensations travel the world not only to see the exotic nature, but also to meet exotic people. After all, the world is just one big stage. The brighter it is, the more attractive it becomes for tourists. Our land is a treasure trove in terms of sacred tourism. The challenge today is the lack of experienced guides. But we can train them ourselves. There's definitely no deficit of places of interest to the global world tourist community in Kazakhstan. It's not the first time that Carmine Barbaro, an artist from Italy, is taking inspiration at Lake Alakol. In addition, he does masterclasses for kids. Anyone can take a piece of canvas and discover an artist inside. Or a sculptor. Or manifest his or her creativity in a different way. The audience votes for the best. Not all of them are master artists yet, but there is a prize for everyone. After all, the main thing is participation and good temper. Gloomy, tedious and dry people won't like it here anyway. Who's getting Harry Potter's magic hat? Umay, the children's patroness, has also attended the party. In two incarnations at once, Umay the nature and Umay the abundance. During the pre-Islamic period, the ancient Turkic peoples esteemed Umay as much as Tengri. The Altaians, the Kakas and the Buryats use the same word for the goddess Umai and a child's soul from the moment of birth until the moment when he or she started walking. If a baby smiles in its sleep, it means Umai is talking to it. While children are keener on theatrical performances, adult bird watchers cannot wait for the most important part of their stay here, the journey over Lake Alakol. It costs about 80,000 tenge to rent a boat enough for 20 people for several hours. Quite affordable if you split it among the group. From aboard the boat, one can observe various waterfowl, including pelicans, ducks and of course seagulls. The birdwatchers would love to see the relict seagull, but rules are rules. The island of Alakol, where these birds nest, is a restricted conservation area with no access for tourists. Mass tourist pilgrimage would severely disturb the rare birds. Yet there are ample opportunities to enjoy the view of great black-headed gulls on the Sang tongue. Black-headed gulls look very similar to relict seagulls, but are much bigger in size. While the latter weighs not more than 700 grams, the former may grow up to 2 kilos. Although the black-headed gulls colony lies outside the restricted area, it is not recommended to disturb them either. Scientists and filmmakers are the only exception. Mass tourists can watch the birds only from far away using field glasses and long-focus optics. Bird fans adhere to the same principle as doctors: do not harm. Until the late 1960s, the relict seagull was considered extinct. Its only skin was brought from Mongolia by Sven Hedin, a Swedish explorer of Central Asia, in 1929 and was kept in the Stockholm Museum depository. In 1967, Ara Oezov, a Kazakh ornithologist and the son of our great writer, discovered a colony of unknown seagulls on one of the Alakol's islands. For several years, the scientists had been studying the discovery, and it took several years to prove it to the scientific community that, in fact, it was the allegedly extinct relict seagull. Later, the researchers ringed a couple of birds and discovered that for winter they migrate to southern Asia and Vietnam. The sanctuary was established on the island immediately after the discovery and later transformed into a reserve. Each colony may include up to 200 pairs of great black-headed gulls building their nests close to each other and collectively defending themselves against predators. Male black-headed gulls are perfect fathers. They take an equal part in egg hatching with their spouses. Colonial birds often share the responsibilities of taking care of their offspring. While some birds hunt, others guard the chicks. There were even several cases registered when birds fed other parents' children. In case of an approaching predator, the colony rises into the air and dives down onto the intruder with loud screams, trying to scare it away. This approach works not on all, but at least on some attackers. The great black-headed gulls spend their winters on the Caspian Sea and small non-freezing water bodies in Western Asia and Northern Africa. Their social organization helps these birds to overcome external difficulties together. But inside the colony, conflicts and fights may occur, sometimes even with lethal outcome. Each seagull perceives the tiny piece of land around the nest as its sole property and will protect it fiercely. When we came here yesterday, we thought these sand tongues to be of no interest, but today, fortunately, we see that we were mistaken. They are full of life. Lots of birds around, although it's really hard to capture the birds on video. Photographing them on the wing is easier, as recording requires a lot of preparation. Birds never sit still and are on the move all the time. Let's see how lucky we can get with the task. In spring, bald coots gather in huge flocks but break into separate pairs when the nesting season begins. Every family vigilantly guards its site, which may be quite small, just a few square meters, but no strangers are allowed there. I get so much pleasure from getting up at about 5:30 in the morning and going wandering along the sand tongue, observing the secret life of birds. The great crested grebe is dolling itself up all the time. She's such a fashion girl, but to be honest, it's just the fleas bothering her. During the time of musketeers and ladies' hats with egret feathers, they exterminated almost all of them in Europe. At present, egrets are listed in the Red Book there. In Kazakhstan, there are still lots of them. We are lucky our ancestors' fashion was not as brutal. If a serious photo trophy is not around, a simple plover will certainly do. Or even a titmouse. Coming ashore, the bird watchers embark on a walking tour. Everyone has a hobby. While some are watching birds, others are fishing. Andrei Bazdyryov, a professional ornithologist from Tomsk, takes on the role of a guide. Among themselves, seagulls are quite peaceful and avoid conflicts because they live in colonies. Yet they will definitely protect the area around their nests. This here is a muskrat lodge. 80 years ago, they brought them here from Canada, and now they have spread all over Kazakhstan. Someone is hiding in the reeds. Yes, it's an egret again. Bald coots, poachards and great crested grebes have no problem sharing the same territory. Birds of different species usually don't conflict with each other as they occupy different eco-niches. In fact, bird watching is becoming an increasingly popular recreation. I saw it somewhere in the internet that at present about 17 million bird watchers live across the globe. They travel around the world, across all 5 continents, trying to see as many birds as possible. Who's there in our lands now? Even the experienced bird watchers sometimes argue about what specific bird they see. It's quite hard to remember hundreds and even thousands of avian species, some of which look similar. Isabelline wheatear cannot stand still even for a second. It's dancing all the time. Every year, small birds kill about 400 million tons of harmful insects. The humankind consumes the same amount of meat and fish. And these little ones are tree pipits inhabiting all Eurasia. Today is a special day for Araylim Sheryazdanova, an ornithologist at the Buyratown National Park. I got 3 lifers today. What's that? Lifer is a special occasion for a bird watcher. It's when we see a new species. I saw 3 types of birds I have not observed before. If there are no birds nearby, even a flower will make a true nature lover happy. Turkestan red-backed shrike nests in southern Kazakhstan. It can be found both in the plain and in the mountains. Konstantin Romanov from Novosibirsk is an experienced bird watcher. He has already observed so many different birds, but is still so passionate about it. Great pictures too. Ortolans, wagtails or starlings are certainly a commonplace, but it still feels so good to photograph them. European stonechats are no sensation either. This hoopoe is so into hunting the insects that it doesn't notice that has become the hunting subject itself. Bloodless hunting with a camera is just as exciting as and even more complicated than conventional hunting. Pulling a trigger takes a second, sharpening the lens and taking the right angle takes time. I am sure the number of tourists or ornithologists in Kazakhstan can increase several-fold. The main limiting factor here is the lack of qualified guides. Birdwatching, as all similar hobbies, requires resources, so only people who have already solved the more pressing vital issues can afford it. If somebody's into birdwatching, it means he or she are quite successful in the main occupation. 150 very passionate birdwatchers have gathered today on the shore of Lake Alakol. Many of them are interested in other things in addition to observing birds. Here, for example, we have Peter Tribunsky and Yevgeny Vavilov from Almaty, who have come here on a real American military Willys Jeep. During the war, thousands of such cars were delivered to the Soviet Union under the Lend-Lease scheme. Obviously, some of them are still on duty. The story of the Willys brand is quite interesting. In the beginning of the war, the U.S. Department of Defense held the tender for a reconnaissance vehicle, as back then there were no such trucks in the U.S. Army. 3 companies, Bantam, Willys and Ford, applied. The Willys truck showed the best testing results. Is collecting old-timers a hobby for you, or it has some practical application? For every man who served in the army, military vehicles are always for the soul. My parents fought in the front as well. My father drove a Willys for half of his life. He had to give it away and then was upset about it for a long time. Some birdwatchers are really into yoga. Staying fit is certainly something necessary for the long hikes while searching for rare birds. Vladislav Yugai is conducting a small wellness yoga seminar. Everybody knows that information gets absorbed better when presented as a game. The festival's organizers decided to combine the entertainment and excursion program with the discussion of some serious issues. Tourism gurus from different fields came to the festival to exchange their insights. This year is the 7th when we organized the festival. This time we decided to hold an informal seminar to raise awareness about birdwatching and the development of domestic tourism. As a rule, this way or another, birdwatchers are engaged in nature conservation. Andrei Bazdurov, an ornithologist from Tomsk, is sharing his experience with seminar participants. We work in 3 regions: Tomsk, Novosibirsk and Altai. One of the objectives of our organization is to get people engaged in nature protection and generate interest among them towards the environment. Alexander Zhdanko, a famous Kazakhstani entomologist, has published many albums devoted to insects. 4 years ago, he also got interested in photographing birds. Alexander traveled across all Central Asia with his camera and prepared a really nice photo album. Young ornithologists are listening to the lecture by the experienced zoologist as a fascinating adventure novel. Initially, we planned to go to the Tian Shan, Pamir and Altai mountains. But then it turned out that we could also include Tajikistan in the project. So we did an expedition to Tajikistan as well. Here's the cover of the first volume, a very powerful one, about 450 pages. It is sold in Europe and in Japan. We are planning to have 3 more volumes. The lecture by Konstantin Romanov, a birdwatcher from Novosibirsk, is about the history of ornithology. Almaty Zoo is in many ways the merit of Maxim Dmitrievich Zverev. He was a nature writer and held the title of the People's Writer of Kazakhstan. He died at the end of the 20th century in Almaty. Myra Jumagalieva, a professor of tourism at Turan University, is sharing her thoughts about the prospects of tourism in Kazakhstan with tourism college students. Thousands of years ago, caravans went through these places along Lake Alakol. Who were those people traveling on camels and horses for thousands of kilometers? They were probably like us, guys. They were also interested in what was there, behind the horizon. Who was living there? What did they look like? What was their culture like? Bayan Shapagatova, the president of the Kazakhstan Camping Tourism Association, is talking about the nuts and bolts of family tourism. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the guest houses. I recently traveled to Kyrgyzstan and saw many of them there. This business is developing quite well there. They build owner and guest houses close to each other on one plot. Anna Solovyeva, the director of a tourist company, has been successfully working on Kazakhstan's tourism market for 15 years. She's sharing her experiences and views on the development of domestic tourism with the students. 90% of our business now is sending tourists abroad. When we just opened, for 7 years we were actively engaged in domestic and ecotourism. I'm now thinking about going back to domestic tourism. Of course, the festival is too short to discuss all challenges and prospects related to eco and educational tourism. But the passion and energy of these keen people to some extent transferred to all the festival's guests. The students of the tourism college, guest house owners and guides all have learned something new and useful for themselves. After all, in tourism, as in all other fields of human activity, the key to success lies primarily in the professionalism of those who have devoted their lives to this trade and their love for the chosen profession. Who knows, maybe after listening to the expert lectures, some of today's students will decide to engage in ecotourism. For the most part, eco-tourists are very undemanding when it comes to service. They are ready to sleep in tents or simple guest houses set up by local residents. What they really need is a well-thought-out tour program with a high probability of seeing the bird species promised in the tour program. Dancing and the Severny Veter, or Northern Wind in Russian, band closed the festival. Eduard Dvukimyanny and Nargiz pleased the guests with their new songs. The band of Oleg Belov performed their composition called Alakol. As a rule, the outdoor KZ team does expeditions, but our stay at the birdwatching festival this time can be hardly called an expedition. Rather, it was a super holiday. We had a good time, learned a lot of new things, and met very cool people.
Boy, скажет чух,